Let me tell you something strange about the silence that forms between parents and teenagers. We live in an era where communication seems more accessible than ever. And yet, in many homes, the silence between a parent and a teenage child becomes louder than any noise. 3 years ago, your child was climbing onto the couch and telling you every detail of their day. Now you're lucky if you get a grunt or a screen pushed in your face with no context. One day it was, "Can I sleep in your bed?" The next day it became, "Get out of my room." And in between, there was a precise moment when the bridge broke, but no one heard the crack. No one saw the fracture widening. Here's the question many parents ask themselves in the solitude of their nights. Why? Why does that child who constantly sought you out now seem allergic to your presence? It's easy to think it's just a phase, that teenagers are naturally like this. But beneath the surface, there is an entire psychology at play, one that speaks of broken trust, violated boundaries, and mistakes many parents make without realizing it. In this video, I will clearly tell you the 7 mistakes parents make that destroy their child's trust. Because you see, it's not that teenagers stop needing their parents, it's that they learn not to seek them out anymore. And there's a huge difference between the two. Before we start, write in the comments if you are experiencing this situation and for how long. First mistake, the violation of privacy. There is something subtle but devastating that happens when you check your child's phone. You say you do it for safety. They call it betrayal. And here lies the first big mistake many parents make without understanding the long-term consequences. You read their messages, check their browser history, rummage through their room when they're not home. You act as if you're carrying out an intelligence operation, convinced it's your duty to know everything. But here's what is really happening. You are teaching your child that privacy is not a right, but a privilege they must earn. You are communicating, without words, that you don't trust their ability to make decisions. And most of all, you are trying to keep their identity taped to yours, preventing it from naturally separating. Because teenagers are designed to separate from their parents. That's how they become autonomous people. That's how they learn who they are beyond who you want them to be. But when you violate their privacy, they learn something deep and painful. They learn that they must hide from you in order to be free. And that is how, without meaning to, you raise a first-class liar. Not because your child is doing terrible things, but because lying becomes the price of privacy. Instead of learning to trust their own judgment, they begin managing your anxiety as if they were your unpaid therapist. Years later, they won't remember what you found in their room, but they will remember that you made their need for privacy feel like a betrayal. Second mistake, emotional hostage-taking. Then there's the second mistake, the even quieter one. Your child makes a choice you don't like, and you freeze emotionally. Silent treatment, long sighs, passive-aggressive comments like, "After everything I've done for you." You're not educating, you're disappearing emotionally. And whether you realize it or not, you are teaching your child that your love has conditions, that your emotional availability depends on their compliance. Teenagers are built to test boundaries. It's literally their evolutionary job. It's how they understand who they are, what they can handle, where they end, and where you begin. But when you turn their growth into a matter of your feelings, you put them in an impossible position. They have to choose between being themselves or keeping you emotionally stable. And what happens? One of two things. Either they rebel completely, thinking, "I can never make you happy anyway, so what's the point?" Or they shrink, becoming chronic people-pleasers who manage your emotions instead of learning to manage their own. In both cases, they learn that love comes with conditions, that affection must be earned through obedience. Here is the truth that hurts, but you must understand. Your emotional reactions are your responsibility. Their job is to grow. When they make mistakes, correct the behavior, not the bond. They need to know that your love is solid, even when your approval isn't. Third mistake, the illusion of experience. The third mistake is perhaps the most insidious because it disguises itself as wisdom. You were a teenager once, So naturally, you think you understand you survived puberty, high school drama, and terrible haircuts. But you were a teenager before social media turned every moment into a performance, before school shootings became lockdown drills, before college cost more than a house, before mental health was something people spoke openly about instead of whispering. Instead of acknowledging all this, you call it just drama, and act as if their panic attack is simply poor emotional management. And here's what you teach them when you do this: that their struggles aren't real, that their world doesn't matter, that you are not a safe person to open up to. This is how parents end up shocked when their kids collapse and drop out of school. The signs were there, but you were too busy saying, "When I was your age, we walked 10 kilometers to school and didn't complain." You want to stay close to your child? Become curious. Ask what growing up in their world is really like. Listen without correcting. Validate without comparing. Fourth mistake: the obsession with results. Then there is the mistake that turns parents into performance managers. Every conversation becomes a performance review. How are your grades? Did you study enough? Did you sign up for something impressive for Harvard? You track their GPA like it's a stock portfolio, but forget to ask how they're really doing. And when their mental health collapses, you're shocked, incredulous, unable to understand. Slowly, they stop telling you things, because what's the point if all you care about is results? Here's what you teach them: that your love is earned through success, that your attention comes with conditions, that they are not enough unless they excel. Some kids burn out chasing gold stars, others give up entirely before even starting, and both groups learn the same thing: I can't come to you when I'm struggling because disappointing you might destroy me, because you judge my results, not my inner journey. But here's what they really need: someone who sees them, not just their statistics. Ask about their thoughts, not just their grades. Become curious about what makes them light up, not just what ticks a box. Because when they know they are loved for who they are, they stop being so afraid of falling short. Fifth mistake: minimizing their pain. Your child says, "My friends are excluding me," and before they finish, you're already in therapist mode. Don't worry, honey. In 5 years, none of this will matter. Or worse. Sounds like teenage drama. You'll be fine. You think you're helping them gain perspective, but from their point of view, you've just hung a massive closed sign on your emotional availability. What seems small to you may be devastating to them because they don't have your decades of experience. For them, this is the big moment. And when you minimize it, they learn that their feelings only matter if you agree with them. This is how kids stop opening up. They realize that unless it's a crisis, why bother? So they bottle it up like an emotional soda. And one day the cap explodes at dinner because you asked if they washed the dishes. Here's the shift: don't minimize, don't fix too quickly. Validate first, process later. Say something like, "Wow, that sounds awful. Do you want to vent, or do you want help figuring it out?" Let them decide what kind of support they need, because when they feel safe being vulnerable with you, they are much more likely to keep coming back. Sixth mistake: the emergency-only response. You're truly present only when the house is metaphorically on fire. Grades slipping? You're all ears. They're crying in their room? Now you're suddenly available. But when things are calm, you're folding laundry like it's a matter of life and death, answering emails like you're curing a terminal illness. And here's what you teach your child when you do this: I matter only when something is wrong. They begin to associate your attention with crisis, which means two things can happen. Either they hide their problems to avoid stressing you out, or they start staging emotional fires just to get some connection. Connection shouldn't be a fire drill. The real relational work happens during the boring moments: car rides, late-night snack runs, the casual "how was your day?" where you actually listen to the answer. If you show up only when there's a crisis, you become the emotional equivalent of an emergency room. Necessary, but not a place you go unless something is broken. Instead, be the coffee shop: low stakes, always open, relaxing music, no appointment needed. Seventh mistake: the obsession with control. And finally, the most devastating mistake. You try to control everything: their grades, their attitude, their friendships, their phone habits, even the number of eye rolls per hour. You think you're steering the ship? They feel like they're under house arrest for the crime of being teenagers, and the tighter you squeeze, the more they squirm, hide, rebel, or go full Mission Impossible just to send a message to a friend. Because here's the truth that changes everything. You cannot force your child into becoming a healthy adult. You can only connect with them into becoming one. When every conversation becomes a battle, you stop being a parent and become a boss. This creates two possible outcomes: a teenager who becomes sneaky and lies like a spy, or one who never trusts themselves to make a single decision without calling you first from college. Neither is the goal. Instead, focus on what you can control: your boundaries, your values, the environment you create. Teenagers need space to stretch, stumble, and occasionally wear socks with sandals. Your job is not to guide every step. It's to stay close enough that when they fall, they know exactly who is there to help them get back up. So what remains when all these mistakes pile up? The heavy silence of distance, the kind that seeps between unspoken words and closed doors. It is the silence of a teenager who has stopped trying to make you understand. The silence of a parent who has stopped knowing how to reach the person they once knew so well. Maybe it's time to start being a safe place for your child, an always open door. Because in the end, what remains is not how much you controlled them, it's how deeply they felt seen and heard. When we stop trying to be perfect parents and start being authentic people, our children finally find the space to be authentic too. Write in the comments if you ever make one of these mistakes and subscribe to the channel for more videos.